I appreciate that. We checked. Never. Not a single time did the greatest player of all time wear a patch honoring himself. Wilt never did it. Russell never did it. Bird never did it. Magic never did it. Charles never did it. MJ never did it. But your guy, the most narcissistic, self-important human being on the planet, has now done it twice, and he's got more patches coming. But when the king narcissist breaks a record, even though he's a stat compiler and is only breaking records because of his longevity in the league, he wants to make sure everybody knows about it. So he picks the patch. The NBA says, yes, sir, you can wear the patch. We work for you, LeBron. And he embarrasses himself. So he's got one patch for turnovers, because he's got more turnovers than anybody in the NBA. And he's got another patch coming for most field goals missed. What an absolute clown.
The instant Craig Carton began speaking about the issue, it was obvious this wouldn't be another cautious, diplomatic NBA conversation. It carried a much more personal tone. It sounded like someone was finally expressing what many people had been thinking, but had been reluctant to say publicly. Then, as soon as he mentioned LeBron James and the controversy surrounding the jersey patch, the discussion intensified even further. At that point, the conversation extended beyond basketball. It became a debate about power, influence, and alleged favoritism at the very top of the league.
And tell them now that he has, I think, made the most field goals in the history of the NBA, which is clearly a compiling stat, that he wants a new patch.
The story unfolded after fans began noticing what they believed was an unusual situation involving LeBron's jersey patch. At first glance, it seemed like nothing more than a routine branding or sponsorship matter. However, the deeper people looked into it, the more questions it appeared to raise. Many started wondering why certain rules seemed to be enforced differently depending on the player. They also questioned why controversies involving LeBron often generated attention, but rarely appeared to have lasting consequences. That was the point where Craig Carton stepped in, arguing that the conversation could no longer be ignored. According to Carton, the issue few people were willing to discuss was how the NBA has always promoted its biggest stars, yet LeBron's situation feels unique. In his view, it goes beyond simple marketing and begins to resemble protection. He suggested that the league consistently works to preserve LeBron's public image, whether the topic is officiating, media coverage, or even controversies like the jersey patch situation. Carton argued that the outcome often seems to benefit LeBron when viewed across a career spanning more than 2 decades. He suggested it appears less like a series of isolated incidents and more like a recurring pattern.
The NBA apparently works for him, that they've approved this, because they do have to approve it after all, that it's time for him to wear a new patch on his jersey.
Next, it's important to look at the issue more closely. While the jersey patch controversy may seem insignificant at first, many believe it reflects a much broader concern. These patches are connected to sponsorships, league branding, and significant financial agreements, so they're generally expected to follow the same standards across the league. However, when fans noticed what they viewed as inconsistencies involving LeBron, it sparked a wave of questions. People began asking whether certain players receive special treatment behind the scenes. Others wondered if sponsors and league partners are given greater flexibility depending on which athlete is wearing the jersey. Craig Carton addressed those concerns directly without softening his opinion. He argued that the NBA has a larger issue with favoritism and suggested that LeBron represents the clearest example of it. Carton also pointed to instances where other players have faced fines, criticism, or disciplinary action over far less significant matters, while LeBron has often appeared to move through controversies without lasting consequences. According to Carton, that perceived difference in treatment is exactly what leaves many fans feeling frustrated.
Remember when John Stockton became the all-time assist leader in NBA history? Yeah. At no point did he wear a patch that said all-time leader assists. Never did it.
This is where the debate becomes more serious. Once fans begin to question whether the competition is being officiated fairly, confidence in the league can start to erode. When that trust fades, some people begin to feel as though the outcomes are being shaped rather than earned. That perception has become increasingly common across social media. where fans regularly debate officiating decisions in major games, MVP voting, and the way the media covers certain players. Because LeBron is often at the center of these discussions, his name naturally becomes part of the controversy, regardless of whether the criticism is justified. To put things into perspective, LeBron is one of the most heavily covered athletes in sports history. Nearly every decision he makes is scrutinized, and almost every game he plays attracts national attention. That level of visibility naturally comes with considerable influence. However, Carton argued that influence becomes a concern if people believe it begins to affect how situations are handled. He suggested that LeBron appears to receive a level of protection that, in his opinion, many other superstar players do not experience to the same extent.
Matter of fact, in the history of the NBA, for every individual player that at some point had set the record for the most of blank, not a single one of them ever wore a patch on his jersey to acknowledge his greatness.
Consider players such as Kevin Durant and James Harden. Throughout their careers, both have dealt with relentless criticism, heavy media attention, and close scrutiny from the league over many of their decisions. Carton argued that LeBron's situation often unfolds differently. In his view, even when controversies arise, the public narrative eventually seems to swing back in LeBron's favor, rather than viewing that as a coincidence. Carton suggested it reflects the level of influence LeBron has built over the course of his career.
That LeBron James is only about LeBron James. For him to want and to wear a patch, nobody else wants to wear it. Nobody else is going to wear it.
The conversation also extends to the role of the media. According to Carton, many major sports networks tend to portray LeBron as a figure who is largely shielded from criticism, creating the impression that challenging him is almost unacceptable. He strongly rejected that idea, arguing that LeBron's accomplishments and legacy should not place him beyond fair criticism. In Carton's view, a player's reputation should be based on sustained excellence, not on being insulated from difficult questions. Carton also raised a broader concern about the message this could send to younger players entering the league. If rising stars believe that reaching a certain level of fame means the rules are applied differently, or that branding carries more weight than competitive fairness, he argued it could create an unhealthy standard for the NBA moving forward. He then connected that argument to the league's current landscape. The NBA is filled with elite young talent, with players like Luka Doncic, Jason Tatum, and Victor Wembanyama emerging as the faces of the next generation. Carton suggested that this should be a period of transition into a new era. Instead, he argued that much of the league's attention continues to revolve around LeBron James. While he did not place all of the responsibility on LeBron himself, Carton maintained that it becomes an issue when one player's spotlight consistently overshadows the accomplishments and stories of the rest of the league.
He's not going to wear a patch that says most missed field goals, which he also has the record for. He's not going to wear a patch that says most turnovers in the history of basketball, which he also has the record for. But he is going to wear a patch, a one of one, that says most field goals made. Now,
young players often make the mistake of trying to copy the path taken by established superstars without recognizing that everyone doesn't operate under the same circumstances. Carton argued that what worked for LeBron may not produce the same results for others because they don't possess the same influence or public standing. According to him, that imbalance can create frustration both among players and throughout the league. Carton also emphasized a point that many people are reluctant to acknowledge. The NBA is, above all, a business. If LeBron attracts television audiences, boosts jersey sales, and keeps the league in the national spotlight, there is a strong financial incentive to protect one of its biggest attractions. However, Carton questioned where the line should be drawn. He argued that once business interests appear to interfere with competitive fairness, fans inevitably begin to notice. He pointed to the growing discussions across social media, where fans frequently debate favoritism, examine officiating decisions frame by frame, and challenge the narratives surrounding major storylines. In Carton's view, every new controversy involving LeBron strengthens the belief among some fans that star players receive different treatment. Carton also noted the timing of these discussions. With LeBron James entering the final stages of his career, each season is often portrayed as another chapter in a farewell tour. He suggested that the league naturally wants to maximize those moments and the attention they generate. However, he argued that if preserving those storylines appears to influence officiating, sponsorship decisions, or other league matters, it creates tension and raises concerns about credibility. According to Carton, this is where the issue becomes especially significant. If fans begin believing that star power has more influence over outcomes than performance on the court, their trust in the competition can weaken. Instead of viewing games as purely competitive contests, some may start seeing them as entertainment shaped by outside interests. Whether people agree with him or not, Carton succeeded in bringing that debate into the public spotlight. Looking at the broader picture, Carton acknowledged that LeBron's legacy is already firmly established. His championships, record-breaking achievements, and remarkable longevity are undeniable accomplishments. In his opinion, controversies like the jersey patch discussion do not erase those achievements, but they can add complexity to how people evaluate his career. Few would dispute LeBron's greatness or his enormous influence on the sport. The question Carton believes more fans are beginning to ask is whether the system surrounding him has always been applied equally. He concluded by arguing that a player's legacy is defined not only by what they accomplish, but also by how those accomplishments are perceived. Even the appearance of preferential treatment, he suggested, can shape the way people interpret an entire career. That is why he believes this debate extends far beyond a single jersey patch or one superstar. It has become a discussion about the NBA's integrity, the consistency of its standards, and the direction the league will take in the future. Carton ultimately left viewers with two central questions. If the NBA does give certain stars preferential treatment, is that simply smart business? Or does it undermine the sport's competitive integrity? And if LeBron stands at the center of that discussion, does it diminish his legacy? Or does it simply demonstrate the extraordinary influence he has built throughout his career? Whatever the answer, Carton argued that this debate is unlikely to disappear anytime soon.